This is Community Interviews, the show where I talk to people I've been fortunate enough to meet about the things that they create. I'm hoping to talk to people about what drives them to create, the frustration that comes with creation, and the overall joys of making things. In this first episode, I'm joined by composer and my friend, Erg. Okay, hello, Erg?
Hello.
Down a little bit? Okay, I think with that we should be good. Cool.
Nice.
So let's just go ahead and get started. So, I guess we'll start with this. I was doing a bit of research yesterday, and I noticed something funny about the name seimuc. Could you tell me where the name came from?
My producer name, I guess, that I work under, it was supposed to be a scrambling, like an anagram of music, but I tried to just kind of change the letters a bit more drastically, and then it turned out to be gibberish for the most part.
I noticed that. I was like, it's music, but with an extra E, so I was like, maybe it's E-music, electronic music, or something.
That name was actually thrown around a little bit when I was trying to sort of brainstorm for a new name, but E-music was one of the anagrams that I tried to work with.
I guess that would make sense, because that would be like erg music.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what do you do? Tell people who aren't familiar with what you do, essentially what you do.
Primarily, the current genre that I am more well known in is lo-fi hip-hop music. But it's very, I don't know, it varies. There's a lot of different elements that are put into it, as opposed to your more well-recognized kind of like down-tempo, sample-based, sad, piano-y kind of stuff. And also, I guess because my background mostly derives from electronic music, so that kind of gets intertwined every now and then. Because I can't help it. I love synthesizers. I always have.
So you've been making music for a long, long time, I believe, since you were 12 years old.
That is correct.
You've been starting to make music. And how'd you start with that? How'd you stumble across, like, making music?
Well, as a sort of precursor to that, I always knew I was going to do something in relation to music. Just to kind of delve back a little bit more into that, I guess. I started playing the guitar when I was 4 years old, because I had always seen, my dad playing, my uncle, a cousin, so on and so forth. But officially, when I first started actually using, like music software, DAWs, and that sort of stuff, I believe it was halfway through 2009. I was 12 going on 13. And my dad had ordered a really cool guitar effects processor. And it came with a free copy of Cubase LE4, which is like the light edition, not like the full program, but it was, it worked.
Do you have any of the Little Babby Erg songs?
Unfortunately, they got swiped when my original laptop's hard drive died, and I had no backups. But I did, however, manage to save a few. I don't know where they are on my external hard drive now, but they were from 2012, I believe. So sort of like I was kind of getting there into more learning about production stuff, but not quite there, like not as polished by any means.
So this is early 2010s, and the internet was starting to take off at that point. Did you use internet tutorials to learn it, or did you basically just trial and error and stumble your way through using that software?
I was able to catch on as far as adding MIDI notes and MIDI clips and stuff like that in Cubase, but it was kind of a mixture of both. Whenever I would just get stuck on something, I just couldn't figure it out.
So you've been composing music now for over 10 years then? I guess that's the case.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what are your inspirations then? What are your main sources that either shaped your work or inspired you to start making in the very first place? Because you mentioned when you were younger still, you sort of knew that you were going to try to pursue something in that regard.
Well, I'm honestly not really too sure as far as inspirations go. There's a lot that kind of have come into play as far as inspiration goes. Yeah, because I feel like there's a lot of things that inspiration kind of derives from for me. Whether it's, other artists, bands that have inspired me to do something, some other fashion, in relation to music. But I'm not quite sure, honestly, to this day.
No, well, I mean, there's a lot of different music. I assume that you probably grew up with like Koji Kondo based off of your Erg 2 profile, which has some remixes of that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I got, again, it was around that time when I was about 4. I think it was for my 4th birthday, actually. My grandma bought me Ocarina of Time. And, well, really, I've been hooked on that really ever since. For some reason, that age, when I was 4, that's when things kind of started to move towards the whole music portion, or what would lead to the whole music portion of my life later on.
And then you mentioned that your father had a guitar, so was he also a musician, or did he happen to do anything with music, or was it just a hobby for him?
For him, for a while, it was a hobby, but then when he was about, sometime after he graduated from high school, he played, I believe, bass guitar in a little band, local band, that his high school buddies kind of put together, and they played at a few bars here and there. Mind you, this was like 1986, somewhere around there, 85, 86. But it wasn't anything like big. They eventually kind of like disbanded and just kind of went their separate ways. But he did kind of, over the years, he gradually improved and kept improving over time and became quite the guitar enthusiast, if you will. And that background stems from my grandfather. He was sort of a multi-instrumentalist. He played the violin, viola, cello, and acoustic guitar. Classical.
Wow, so there's a whole history there then of like musicians. That's cool.
Oh yeah, and it primarily stems from my grandfather. He loved music. He could read and write music. And he, I believe, dabbled a bit in flamenco guitar. But yes, that's mostly stringed instruments was his upbringing. Not so much, piano or any other form of a keyed instrument per se. But yeah, that's where most of that stems from.
So you make a lot of music. I was trying to do an overall tally. Is it safe to say that you've made like hundreds of tracks by now? Because there's only a few that are on like your different SoundClouds, and then there's also the whole seimuc Bandcamp, which also has its own different tracks. So you have like hundreds of songs already made in a couple years.
I think it's safe to say that I'm probably, like, as far as full-on finished tracks, probably definitely over 500 if I had to guess within like the past 3 to 4 years. I don't know. I seem to like make at least 100 in roughly a year or two, just because that's what I do. That's what I'm always doing for the most part. It's always been, my outlet where I kind of just go on autopilot, so to speak.
Let's just take one of the several hundreds of songs that you've made or that maybe you started or scrapped or whatever. What's your process for making a song? Like, where does it start?
For a while, it sort of became a formulaic process during when I was working on the Better Days album under the seimuc name. And the formula for that, the process that I newly implemented was that I would write lyrics first and get those finished and then apply the music after that. So I did that for roughly a year, and that was starting from like February-ish of 2019, towards the end of that year. But as far as like an actual consistent process, I can't really say. It's always been more or less sporadic, based off of how I'm feeling, a mood, etc.
There's only about 6 albums on your Bandcamp at the moment. Are there other ones that you've made in the past that you just haven't released because maybe you don't like them or something? Or are these like 6 indicative of your work so far?
There was a few that I kind of scratched because I felt the production value wasn't up to par to my personal standards. Mind you, this was around 2013-ish, 2014. And those were full on like EDM, 128 BPM, 4 on the floor dance music. And obviously now I can make those types of tracks now and not be worried about the production value at all. But so there was at least 2 within that time frame that I can think of. But as far as like actual released albums go, there's more. There's at least like maybe 3. I know one is a 2-parter that's on my old Bandcamp, which is somewhere. Should be still up. I believe I haven't logged into that account in quite a while. And those are like, again, primarily electronic, sort of like EDM music.
Is there a difference between and seimuc? Do those capture different audiences or different moods, different genres?
Initially, that was my intention, but it's kind of 50-50 now. They're kind of the same in a way now. It's just that my name is more known amongst, like, Twitch, I guess. I've always used the name. seimuc is relatively new. I think I made that name towards the end of 2017, I think. And prior to that, I'd always been known as But as far as like music-wise, as far as that goes, was meant to be the more dancey sort of pop, I guess, electronic stuff. And then seimuc was kind of like the polar opposite, but I feel like that's changed quite a bit. And that I'm kind of incorporating more electronic bits and pieces here and there under the seimuc name.
Because I noticed that the songs in seimuc, for the most part, tend to be a bit more maybe serious?
For sure, because there's almost always an underlying message that's trying to be conveyed, whether it's through the samples I use with like vinyl recordings or just like the melody. There's almost always, even if it's like subconscious, on a subconscious level, there's almost always some sort of message that's trying to be pushed through all the chords and the down-tempo beats, if you will.
Because I noticed that on 1214, one of your hit songs is "Shit Fuckery Times 4."
Yeah, see that one. That's like a whole like little, I guess, lineage of shitposty kind of songs that for some reason were well received amongst quite a few.
I thought it was a shitpost, but I listened to it and I was like, this isn't a shitpost. It actually slaps.
Yeah. Well, see, what started that, the name just for some reason just stuck. I don't know why. It was on an older actual album, which is the 2-parter I mentioned. That's called Antumbra. That's where the first shitfuckery one started. And it was just the name. I just thought it was funny. I was quite naive still at that point in regards to music, I guess. This was around 2016, if I recall. And the second one, I actually streamed, putting it together, arranging, coming up with ideas on the fly, which I normally don't do, and which is why I've always been hesitant to stream that because of like writer's block. It's quite persistent for me. But yeah, it was really fun because I actually streamed Shitfuckery times 2. And an older buddy of mine that I still frequently collaborate with, sort of like low-key, was there to see it. And so the meme that derived from that was this guy, DJ Carnage. He got a lot of flack, and again, this is like the story behind that, the lineage of the shitfuckery, shitpost songs. Just for clarity's sake, don't hurt me, Daddy Carnage. So DJ Carnage got a lot of flack because he used, I think it was for the Razer Blade Stealth laptop, I think? Or one of them. It was in, I think, 2015. Mind you, I was a little late to the party of that meme. But, so he got a lot of flack for like showing very poor production skills in FL Studio. Like he just got completely obliterated on Twitter for a while. And the fact that he was using a pirated version of a well-known VST synthesizer called Silent One. And so he got a lot of flack for that. And just his commentary on what he does in FL Studio was just absolutely ridiculous. It was quite an insult to FL users. And so one of the memes that came from it, that derived from that, was him saying very, very way more stronger. It's quite a nice sentiment. And he just kind of like winged it. I don't think he attempted to like formulate a script of any kind. He just kind of like made himself look like an ass. And so that's obviously the humorous factor formed from that. And I believe my friend who watched that stream of me putting that one of the songs together, Shit Fuckery Times 2. He sent me a clip, a little snippet of him saying very, very way more stronger. And so that's when it became full on, sort of like a shitpost meme song. Because I added his vocal clip in the song and looped it repeatedly in different intervals, and his pitch, I transposed it quite a bit. So it's like high pitched and then like super monster level pitch. And so that's where that derived from. But yeah, I don't know. It was very, very interesting how that started.
Do any of your other songs have any like unique stories to them?
Well, let's see here. Not, I mean, majority of them, no. But there's one that's also is kind of a meme song. It's called, well, I think it was originally, it might still be called 4 a.m. It's on it should be on the ERG2 SoundCloud, I think. And it has a picture of the meme man himself, Van Darkholm. He's like in a gimp suit.
Oh, Deep Dark Fantasies?
Deep Dark Fantasy, yeah. See, that was the original name before I added Van Darkholm's vocal sample in there. It was called 4 a.m. See, I still remember that. Now, again, that was like early 2016 when I uploaded that, I believe, or when I finished it.
Yeah, because I think from what I've noticed, like that's one of your biggest runaway successes, oddly enough.
My got you brethren, they got my back.
Yeah, so I was going to ask if there were any like key tracks that you've made, but I guess those two are...
I mean, in all honesty, yeah, like I can't honestly think of one that stands out besides the shitpost ones and that one in particular.
There's this cute song that you've made called The Sleepy Frog.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm bringing that up just for the sake of bringing it up, because I just think it's cute that sometimes you're just like, oh, my friend is going to sleep. Here's a little goodbye song.
Yeah.
It's a little metaphorical smooch on the head and tucking them in.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, every now and then when I feel compelled to, I guess, sure, I'll formulate some nice little, what are they called, Celesta thingies. But I sort of scratched that and I replaced it with like a more sort of electric piano-y kind of thing. But every now and then I'll do that. Or I'll try to make like a little lullaby, if you will, and then just completely butcher it with like other synthesizers and drums in it. But I do that every now and then, and then I'll just like think of a name, like what would fit, what would be a suitable name. Oh, I know, the Sleepy Frog. So that's kind of how that started. It took me a while to finish that. Like I actually completely forgot about it because there's so many other projects that I've been working on here and there, and then I was like, wait, I forgot about this one. Shit, I need to finish this one. It was so fun to actually start with like the little lullaby part and then just kind of butcher. But yeah, again, every now and then I do that. But there's no real idea behind that. Just kind of impromptu.
It's just cute. It's just a little nice smooch in a musical sense.
For sure.
So we've established that, you're a musician, and to me it only makes sense to talk about your favorite albums, your favorite bands, your favorite compositions as a whole. Not that they had to influence you, but I'm just curious while I'm here just to pick your brain and see what you like.
Absolutely. Boy, oh boy. Well, like immediately, the first thing that comes to mind is Depeche Mode. I've been an avid fan since I was about 11-ish years old. Besides their musical composition, like style, how they've kind of gone in between quite a few different genres over the years, to the point in now where they're back to like their roots of just solely using electronics in their music with the occasional like electric guitar. Yeah, primarily Depeche Mode has been a big influence on me. As far as albums go, I mean, I could probably name every single one. I would have to say their 1997 album called Ultra has probably been one of the most, if not the most pivotal album from them that has actually, influenced me to kind of make my own sort of Depeche Mode-y rip-off songs in a way, but then eventually kind of leading into my own sort of style, I guess.
Do you think any of that is still there in what you make now, or do you think by now it's kind of faded out and you're starting to stand on your own?
By now, the only thing that kind of sort of moves me in that direction again. It's not so much the music, because I can pretty accurately recreate a lot of their music now. It's the lyrics. The main songwriter slash lyricist of the band, Martin L. Gore. Again, because I didn't really pick up on this when I was younger, but now, kind of in retrospect, just reading the lyrics are very interesting, confusing, I guess you could say, inspiring, to kind of drive me in that lyrical sense, I guess. But that's about as far as that goes. The others, like, there's a few others I can think of. Damon Albarn of Blur, Gorillaz, and probably one more I'm missing. But yeah, Damon Albarn has been quite an influential artist slash musician. Obviously, I was introduced to Gorillaz when I was about 8 years old or something, and I've been steadily following slash listening since. Again, kind of like, not so much the music is where the influence comes from, but primarily the lyrics. And I kind of like really got into like writing around 2014, and it was low key because that was when Everyday Robots came out, which was his first fully solo album, and it was very, very personal. You know, he explores his youth, the nuances that occurred, and kind of what has made him who he is today, I guess. I mean, there's a bit in there where he subtly talks about using, heroin. And it's like, whoa, like it's very, very open and transparent about that sort of stuff. And I was like, wow, if he could do it, why can't I? Even in a subtle sort of context, I guess. But yes, there's a few others that are kind of well known. Massive Attack. I listen to them quite a bit as well. Kraftwerk is also very influential, otherwise known as the godfathers of electronic music, and even hip hop, I think, something like that. But also, I guess, Rush, the formerly active Canadian rock trio. Rest in peace, Neil Peart. He was a great writer too. Again, another big influence on my writing as well, and just the whole band as a whole, in their prime. Really, I still listen to a lot of their stuff, considering they're like, I guess, prog rock in a way. I think it's what they've been labeled as, but mostly their 80s stuff that's just filled with synthesizers and so on. It was also very influential into the sampling kind of thing with me, because they used I think that's when they were incorporating samplers and stuff in the studio and live. So that's where that kind of stems from as well.
Do you do a lot of lyrical work in your releases?
More so in the past 2 years, I'd say. Yeah. But a lot of them don't get used because it's just either I can't think of enough words to squeeze into like a 3-minute song, or I just can't relate to the lyrics anymore, and it's just like, just gonna recycle bin it. Yeah, sometimes I'll record stuff, and then sometimes like the vocals just aren't up to par to what I would like them to be, if I'm just not having a good singing day. And then I just can't be bothered to re-record them or use something like auto-tune. Like, no. I try to stay away from any like pitch correction VST plugins.
I'm glad you gave me that answer, not because like that's the right answer, but like in one of your tracks in Wake Me Up When October Ends, which I'm going to touch on in a bit, the second track, Sleepy, I noticed that's something where I believe that's you on the vocals? Yeah,
roughly every, if not every song that's, that has vocals, they're indeed mine.
Yeah, so I was just like, I hope it's not one of those instances where he's just like, oh, I have a bad voice.
No, that's the thing. I picked this up from, I guess, I don't know what they've been doing lately, but I picked this sort of technique up from a more well-known sort of lo-fi producer by the name of Alex. The style of his vocals is very, if you were to listen to his stuff in comparison to mine, you'll hear some form of some similarities. And it's kind of like, sort of like talk singing, if you will. Like you're not putting a lot of vigorous effort, into your pitch per se, or like, vibrato, that kind of stuff. In other words, it's kind of like sad boy singing. Like you're just, I guess I'll sing. So, and it's kind of weird because you have to sort of, it worked for Alex in that regard as well, and same for me. I don't know if it applies to anyone else that does this sort of singing and lo-fi music in particular, but you kind of have to put yourself in that sort of depressed vibe in order to like make it sound effortlessly, I guess. Like it's kind of weird, but you kind of have to push yourself to, organically, I guess, sound like you're just, you're kind of bummed out. Which sucks. I don't like doing that. It's not healthy. I don't advise that. I don't recommend that, but that's the only way I've gotten that kind of like tonality, which you can hear in the song Sleepy.
Yeah, well, I suppose because that makes it more genuine to an extent.
And being genuine is one of my, things. I try to always be as genuine, and whether it's lyrics, whether it's, blah, 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 music in general, I try to be 100% very thorough, I guess.
One of the songs or like albums, I guess, of yours that I've seen more prominently displayed is Wake Me Up When October Ends, which is, that I assume that's a reference to Wake Me Up When September Ends?
Indirectly, I guess, but no, that's not what the name.
Oh, really? So what's the name from?
It's a bit personal. I might have disclosed it with you and a few others. Basically, October was a really bad month for me, and it really left a bad just imprint on me, and it kind of drove me to snap out of that and sort of reflect on the good that is derived from my music, as opposed to like the sad, depressing song. So I kind of was striving to kind of, I guess, better my music in a way, because in contrast to that, there was another album that I put out called Regrets. And that one was just, I don't like listening to it, if I'm being honest, because I was in such a bad state of mind. There was a lot of frustration. And I'm sure if you listen to it, you'll hear like there's like a lot of underlying frustration in like just music. Like I'm gonna openly admit this. The production value on Regrets was pretty bad. I don't think it was well mixed because of how I was feeling at that time, which led up to October being a horrible month as well. And so moving on from that, that's when I was like, you know what? No, that's not going to happen again. I'm going to strive to better myself, and at the very least in regards to my music.
I do think it's interesting that we go from Residents to Better Days, then to Regrets, and then your most recent release, Wake Me Up When October Ends.
It's some deep lore, isn't it?
Yeah, I was wondering if those were like by any chance connected, and I suppose they are.
Again, sort of on a low key subconscious level, without really thinking about it. Yeah, funny because Residents personally is my favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, actually, like a lot of fun putting those songs together. Now, the title and the song itself was kind of, because again, I was still kind of in a weird place because I was making a lot of new friends on Twitch or SoundCloud, and I still felt like I stood out amongst everyone. I don't know why. I still don't know why in retrospect. And I was like, why don't I just write about how I'm feeling? Like, I've been reading so much about, formulating lyrics and fitting them into songs. Why don't I just actually sit down and write first? So that's when that first happened. And then that went on into better days where I went full on right first, then the music. But yeah, so that, like, the whole album was just about finding my place. Where do I fit in? Where can I feel at home? And then in conjunction with that, I was also in the progress of moving to another city that I've never been to as well. So that's why I felt those all kind of correlated into one another. Hence Residence.
Would you say that Residence was kind of like a high before, I guess, the like slump? I don't want to call it a slump, though, because it's still important to like acknowledge your work during this time, even if it was during a more difficult time. But would you say that maybe that was like a little bit of a peak before you started having more, I guess, personal issues?
Yeah, I would say so. Considering that year in particular, I think Residence was around November of 2018. Considering that whole year was really good for me. It was very positive. I had just met the aforementioned Alex, and I learned a lot because I had been listening to his music for quite a while, at least like maybe a year, a little less than a year, because I started when I was starting to listen to lo-fi hip hop playlists on YouTube and like the lo-fi 24/7 streams or whatever, and that's when I came across some of his songs. I was like, wow, these are like really good. I like this. I like the production style. It's like very similar to what I'm doing at the moment. Like, woo. And then actually talking to the guy, I'm like, wow, I'm trying not to fanboy here. And it was cool. Unfortunately, that kind of fell off, unbeknownst to me. But hey, it is what it is. But I learned a lot. And he shared a lot of insight on how he does the lo-fis and how I'm currently doing the lo-fis. And so the contrast between those and then kind of going back and forth with sending little like demo clips and kind of so on and so forth. So that's why that whole year, though, 2018 was really, really good as far as music goes.
Would you say that Wake Me Up When October Ends is a little bit more of a high note, I guess? Like it starts to pick things back up, or do you think it's still in that slump?
It's kind of like, I've used this metaphor before. It's kind of like there's a lot of broken shards of glass and you're trying to pick up all the pieces again, but you're being apprehensive to not, accidentally, poke yourself with sharp glass. So that's kind of how it is at the moment, but it's still on, I'd say right now it's on a high note for sure. Very, positive outlook in general.
Are we by any chance in progress of another album?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And the Sleepy Frog will be on said upcoming Untitled project thing.
I'm glad that we have another release to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to do a little bit of self-indulgence. I'm interviewing you, so I guess this is appropriate. I love the track that you made. Stevie, 2 V's, I Comb My Hair.
Stevie.
Yeah.
That one I had to because that was such a funny moment. And again, keep in mind, I was kind of at a low point and there wasn't much, for me to indulge in and as far as genuine laughter goes. And that one did it for me. And I was like, oh man, I haven't laughed this hard in I don't know how long. And so that one I just had to record that little snippet and just kind of include it because the whole track had been done previously, unreleased, and I was like, well, I guess I could include the hair combing thing in it, but just kind of change it up a bit, change the key, maybe change the percussion just to make it a tiny bit more original. But the bass track, like the whole, like the piano segment, and whatever ambient nuances going on in the background had already kind of been done. Or demoed, if you will, but like I said, unreleased. So
I kind of want to delve into this a little bit more, and if you want to get technical on this, feel free.
Sure.
So what's your draw with low fidelity? Has that been your favorite genre to listen to, or your favorite genre to create?
Not necessarily. I didn't start going headfirst into the lo-fi realm of music until roughly halfway through 2017. And the reason for that is kind of not exactly for the best of reasons. Again, I was struggling with some issues. I wasn't very happy with my freelance work that I was doing at the time. I was involved with a self-funded, quote-unquote, record label thing. I don't know. Again, I was approached. I did not throw in an application or anything. They felt I was, with my competence at the time and my skills, that I was worthy of partaking, and that if this thing got off the ground and became something, I would be a COO or something. So I was like, wow, well, we'll see how that happens. I'm not going to get my hopes up high by any means, but, I'm going to be an adult about this and see where this goes. And I'm not going to put in tremendous amount of effort and get nothing out of it, So that was my mindset. And so I was halfway through my little tenure of that, and I was just struggling to get stuff done because there was already issues that were apparent with the main boss, I guess, if you will. And, there was just no motivation at all. And I was just in a really, really horrible frame of mind. Like, it wasn't as bad as it had been prior or later on, but it was getting there. And so I was starting to listen to more chill, relaxing music, if you will. And then that's when I kind of started listening to more lo-fi stuff. So that's where I was like, well, maybe I should just start full on making stuff in this genre because I like it enough. I need a break from dance music, electronic music as a whole, So that's where that started. It was probably started around July of 2017 for a specific date, August, somewhere around there. But yeah, so that's how that started. But that's when I was listening to it, but I didn't start actually attempting to produce until around, I want to say late September-ish, early October, something like that. And the first actual lo-fi, well, by definition, it would be considered hip-hop, but first one I did. It should still be on my 1214 SoundCloud. I believe it's called Decline, and it's very Boards of Canada influenced. But I forgot to mention them. Yeah, they're pretty influential to me as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you at one point said that you went to audio engineering school.
I wanted to. That was my goal. That was one of my goals I had for a long time, but due to financial constraints, I couldn't go through with that. As of now, I'm not sure if I still plan to do that. Maybe, if given the opportunity, perhaps that could still be a thing. I'm not by any means kind of like shutting that down. But yeah, that was one of my goals, sure. But I have learned just on my own terms. Like it's, everything that I've mentioned so far, as far as engineering goes.
Most of it comes from trial and error, I guess, or after making songs for so long, you've sort of picked up on things. And
and one of the things that I've kind of taken to heart is if I have the tools readily available, with tutorials and stuff like that, why should I have someone else do something that I can do and learn how to do efficiently on my own? I mean, I have the skills to, I have the capacity to do all of that with the tools given to me, and also with, in VST plugin land. So that's why I figured, well, what's stopping me from doing that myself? So that's kind of, that's where that stems from, like with mastering and mixing sort of stuff.
And for those who perhaps don't like lo-fi or aren't really into that sort of music, you also make a bunch of other sorts of sounds. You use a lot of orchestral music. You make like little video game style tunes, remixes of Nintendo music. Yeah.
Again, that's always been a passion of mine as well. And I guess another goal is being, a lead composer for a video game project alike. So that's why that still is, again, still a persistent thing. So something I still partake in is sort of like what helps a lot is I bring up just random art, like concept art from Zelda games and stuff like that. And I kind of get my own ideas from that. For me, that sort of music is pretty visual. Like I have to kind of more or less get a visual of an area, a landscape, something like that to really get the the music going in a direction that I see fit.
So what are the overall challenges, I guess, that you faced? Because it seems like there is a lot of effort on your part to try to make each and every single song genuine. And you mentioned how sometimes, like, even though you spend a lot of time, the production value might not be there. Tell me about the challenges, just the overall challenges or specific instances, whatever might apply.
I suppose writer's block is a persistent challenge, sometimes more or less a nuance for me that kind of doesn't ever fully dissipate. But I still face it head on. And I've been doing that really for the past, 10 years? There's not really many challenges as far as the music goes that I've faced besides the aforementioned, writer's block thing. I suppose sometimes it's a challenge when I'm trying to convey some sort of, like I've said earlier, kind of like an underlying message, whatever it may be. It's mostly I leave that to interpretation. Sometimes that's a challenge, like getting a meaning out of something when it's just not there. I'm just not feeling it. But then I might just go ahead and finish it and again, leave it up to interpretation. Maybe someone out there listening will, interpret a message from it in a more positive manner. But really, those are the only things that immediately come to mind. I don't think there's that many, though, regardless.
Do you have several tracks that you've sort of just started on, or like little notes that you just never released? Or do you think that once you start working on something, you can get something out of it?
That happens I guess both of those things kind of separately occur pretty often, more or less. Yeah, sometimes, though, I'll work on something and, if I'm just not feeling it that day, I'll just, again, just in case it gets buried in my project folder, I'll just open up Notepad, just copy whatever the project file name is, and I'll just save that on my desktop. And then eventually go back to that, oh, okay, where is this song? and project folder 2020. Then I'll scroll through all the hundreds that I've worked on within the past few months. So yeah. But both of those things do occur, though, pretty often.
So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I just want to get a concrete answer. What are your overall creative goals? What do you want to do musically in terms of composition, audio production?
Having some form of official form of clarification that I'm certified for some form of audio engineering, that's certainly still a goal. And I feel that would kind of push me even more so in a creative way as well. Not necessarily with music production, but creative in a way that's sort of maybe teaching, I guess, which I've already kind of done a little bit here and there. I try to be informative. I guess another goal would be to try to maintain the sort of somewhat steady pace of releasing stuff, I guess. I would like to continue doing that for as long as I can. That's still a goal of mine, to keep doing that. I feel like I haven't achieved it, and I don't know if I ever will. Because I always beat myself up over stuff like that.
I mean...
Not physically, obviously.
But yeah, no. But I mean, you've been composing for over a decade now.
I think it's a bit of an obsession at this point. With always trying to better myself. And whether it's knowledge of mixing and mastering stuff or production stuff. Because, again, for a while there, I was just full on focusing on the music side of things, not really learning much about frequencies and filters and stuff like that, and phase shifting and stuff like that, and the stereo depth or whatever, or learning what a maximizer or limiter does. I believe also I'm a bit of a perfectionist in that regard. So I'm always trying to meet my personal expectations of production value, and that's always been persistent. I guess also another goal that I've been striving for is letting the listener get a sense of comfort, I guess, relief, knowing that whatever state they're in, that they have a sense of a sort of I guess, no pun intended, residents, I guess. And that, the whole goal, despite how depressing some of my songs are and how depressed I was at that point in time, there's still sort of, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, there's better days.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And so, and again, you kind of see where the title stemmed from as well. Like the I guess you could say the motif, maybe, that's been persistent. That's still a goal of mine to keep doing that. And again, I feel like I haven't done that enough. So I'm still striving to reach that goal of, or at least getting some sort of feedback from listeners, more so that, hey, your music kind of really got me going in a more positive direction. I think that would kind of keep me going as well.
Speaking of listeners, where can people find your stuff?
My primary listeners of my discography is, I think it's seimuc.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description and also in the pinned chat.
SoundCloud.com/seimuc1214, I believe, is still my SoundCloud. I don't think I've ever changed the URL. I'm on YouTube. It's just a topic channel, though. It's auto-generated. It should just be seimuc as well. It was, I believe, DistroKid helped me out with that. Yeah,
I noticed that you also have songs released officially on Amazon and iTunes.
Yeah, they helped get those out there. I'm kind of readily available. I don't know. I'm on, I believe, almost every major platform, I think. Spotify, again, just seimuc should be on there. But I'm the only seimuc there is, I believe. Because the last time, not too long ago, someone I can't remember who, it might have been one of my aunts I was talking to. And they were talking about, have you ever Googled yourself? And I was like, that's kind of weird. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I looked up seimuc, and all I found was just thumbnails of my stupid face. I was like, really? Is there no one else with this name? And I couldn't find anything. So unless someone wants to do some more digging,
no, maybe it's unique as far as I can tell.
And that's just me really not being as original as I could have been, if I'm being honest.
With the name, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you did just say it was an anagram of music with an E, but...
Mm-hmm. I wanted it to have at least more letters in it, but at least maybe 4 or 5 more just to really stretch it out. But yeah, so I give myself an A for effort.
Yeah, no, I think you're hard on yourself, but I get that. Again, I'm doing these interviews with people that are creative, and I'm really hoping to see what makes them tick, what makes them work, why do they make the things that they make, and I feel like that perfectionism, that being hypercritical of what you make and what you do is going to be pretty prevalent. But in your case, I think that you're doing a stand-up job. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, you have years of work to back. It's not like people who are just oh well, I'm a music producer and they have 2 songs on a SoundCloud that was last updated 2 years ago.
I had that happen so many times when I first started streaming. I had so many actual children come into my chat and are like, hey,
check out my SoundCloud, want to collab?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of an ass. I was kind of mean because I was like, dude, I'll help you out as much as I can, but dude, come on, stop spam whispering me your links.
Yeah, after a while, didn't you even have it as a rule in your Twitch chat or as a scrolling message?
Yes, please, no backseat producing. That was another thing too. It was hey, bro, I'm listening on my MacBook Pro. You need to turn down that hi-hat on the left channel a bit. You're listening on tiny little speakers. All you get is treble. Of course it's going to sound too loud. Stop it.
I love all the professional audio engineers with
absolutely
with 3 listens in SoundCloud that was updated 4 years ago.
The harsh reality. Or not so harsh. Depends on how you perceive it.
The greatest critics of music.
Absolutely. And one thing it took me a while to learn is that, and this kind of goes for anyone, really in any thing they're seeking a profession in is you're always your biggest critic and critiquing yourself over and over and over.
Yeah, because I mean, you spend more time with your work than anybody else ever will.
Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to like grasp that. And then again, I just kind of sat down. Mind you, I must have been like maybe 16, 17, somewhere around there. When I first started actually looking into like mixing, all that stuff, engineering, dabbing here and there and that. But yeah, like, man, like my music at that time was kind of okay, but I'm just like being so harsh on myself. Like I'm critiquing everything I do. Like maybe I should just kind of step back from that a little bit and just kind of roll with it and see how it goes. And it turned out really well. Like in 2016 was when I first made my SoundCloud account, and immediately it was already, after a few months, I was getting quite a few what I perceived as genuinely wholesome comments. And that's what kind of like sparked something in my head. Like, I guess I was doing something right this whole time. I was just being really hard on myself, and I don't know why. I guess in my pursuit of utter auditory perfection, I don't know. But yeah, for sure. Again, it took me a while to grasp that. Yeah, I'm my biggest critic, and I probably always will be. And that, hey, that's the thing in many other professions. Like, wow, oh, how cool.
But that keeps you sharp. That keeps you wanting to learn more and just keep on improving your craft.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for telling me about all this stuff. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on regarding your music creation that perhaps I might have missed?
I can think of one thing, but it's not as pivotal, but maybe, again, it's a matter of perception and interpretation. A lot of my songs either are about me indirectly or are an actual little like short story that I kind of came up with just sporadically. So again, I'm not going to name any songs in particular. That's for people to pick out and listen to.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to ask, but I thought, okay, this might be a bit too personal.
Oh no, I'm I'm an open book. I'm open to talking about just about anything and being as transparent and honest as I possibly can. But yeah, so some of the songs, like I said, that are more lyrically driven, are, like I said, either about something that I've dealt with, have been through, or are currently dealing with, or are something that I have no connection with. I've never been through that, but someone might find solace in listening to that and hearing that they're not alone. So that's where that kind of stems from, as far as, like I said, pushing that sort of underlying message that's either very apparent or not. So that's something that I feel is always going to be a thing, at least under the seimuc kind of lo-fi shed boy hip hop stuff. So yeah, and the end goal is that it's in a positive light.
So that's the end of I guess I don't want to call it the creative segment, because the last few things that I'm going to ask are just pretty much tangential, but I kind of just want to know for my own sake.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that little face? The :caret close parentheses face.
It started really when I used to watch this streamer called Widwix. I was an avid viewer, follower, if you will. I loved the guy's content, and he would always use that. And he made it an emote. It was Kirby with that, as it was called then, with the Dorito face, the Dorito chip nose. And for some reason, that just stuck with me. I was like, I'm going to steal this, and I'm going to use it. You can't stop me, Whitwix. You'll never know. But yeah, so that's where that came from, and it's just stuck. I don't know why. I thought it was more interesting than your regular, sort of just, colon, parenthesis, smile. So that's why I was like, it's cute. He's got a little nose, a little pointy carrot Dorito shaped nose. I like that. Where that meme started, I don't remember. I don't know. But it was around late 2015, early 2016 is when that started. Which, coincidentally, is when I made my 1214 SoundCloud. So that's where that kind of stemmed. I've seen it used more in the past, say, 2-3 years, which is kind of nice because it was kind of low key. It was like a subtle meme here and there in Twitch chat. But then after a few years, it kind of like started rising in popularity, I guess. So now I see a few streamers that I occasionally watch use it in their stream title. So I was like, that's cool. It's nice to see others using it that are more well known, I guess. But yeah, that's where that stems from, and I refuse to let it go.
So whenever you're not creating music, what do you do aside from, eat and shower and sleep?
If I'm being honest, I have a habit of forgetting to eat.
Oh, really?
That's been a persistent thing on due to my antidepressant. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a sucker for Diablo themed action RPGs, or just sometimes Diablo 2, or Path of Diablo, the really great online mod for it. But yeah, most of the time I'm playing Path of Exile, which, as I said, is a Diablo-themed action RPG. I picked up the Elder Scrolls Online. I play mostly games for the most part. Again, well, before, COVID and everything, I would like take our dogs for a walk or something just to have some form of movement as opposed to being stationary roughly 24/7. But now, again, I've had to cut back on that quite a bit. I guess sometimes cooking. I don't know. I make my own homemade chicken tikka masala. It is quite challenging at first, but I think I've got it down to a T. That's like the only actual home cooked meal that I make for myself and no one else. Sometimes, So the biggest thing for me is video games for the most part, which I don't really play much. Like I said, I play Path of Exile for the most part. Almost every new league that comes out every 2 to 3 months, I'm always in the first 500 queued to log in on day one. It just clicked with me when I first started playing that. I play ESO, even though it's pretty garbage right now. Played it a little bit last year and then just got bored with it, then picked it up again and just kind of went ham. What else? Every now and then I'll play Breath of the Wild on the Wii U emulator. I streamed it. I think you were there for a few of them.
Oh, I was there for one of them.
Yeah.
Will we ever see more streams? Or is that not on your list at the moment?
At the moment, there's no real motivation to doing so. But if there is, and if my internet permits me to, then potentially.
Oh yeah, you also have bad internet.
Yeah, it's been okay for the past few months, surprisingly. But again, that's just another reason why I also wanted to relocate to the city across where they got fiber internet.
Yeah.
Symmetrical, 1 gig up, 1 gig down. Again, hopefully we'll cross that bridge, and then I'll become full-on Valorant pro streamer guy.
Is that the true overall goal that you want? To become a pro Valorant esports player?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't keep up with Zoomers these days. But
are you good at games?
I can try. My first Valorant game I played a couple nights ago with my aunt, and my aunt, mind you, is only 4 years older than me. I went 22 and 13, I think. So I dropped a 20 ball in my first game. My background with games, I was a super CS Source nerd, by all means. I loved Counter-Strike. I always had, but I never had a good enough computer to play it. Yeah, my background with games, besides console stuff, was shooters. I was the what would be the equivalent of the G-fueled injected Zoomer. Just get the syringe filled up with G-fuel, I'm good to go. Who needs Adderall, right? But no, seriously, yeah, I played a lot of Counter-Strike Source. Got accused of hacking at age 14 because I was dropping 30 bombs left and right in every game.
Not Counter-Strike Go?
This was a little bit before Go came out. This was at least 2 years before CSGO came out. It was around 2010, 2011. I played Battlefield 3 quite a bit. Quite a bit. I probably had around maybe 2,000 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was rage-inducing, but it was a good time.
What's like your favorite game that's released in the past 5 years, 10 years?
Any specific genre or just in general?
Whatever you want, however you want to answer it.
Probably Breath of the Wild, if I'm being honest. I was so hyped for it during the E3 2014? 2013? The little teaser. And that hype remained until March 3rd, 2017. I would have to say Breath of the Wild for sure.
It's fun. There's a lot of charm.
Day one, I think I sat 16 hours playing it, and that had been the longest gaming session I had done in quite a few years.
Yeah, it's well deserved.
Oh yeah, I had a blast. I never got all the Koroks, so I think I got 370 or something, almost 400, but no, I couldn't find all. What was it, 700-800 of them? So definitely, I would say Breath of the Wild for sure.
I think you've mentioned this before, but again, I kind of just want a nice official lore.
Oh, absolutely.
How'd you meet Frog?
I met Frog during a small streamer that I believe I hosted and rated during one of my first Breath of the Wild streams. I believe it was around February 2019. It was a little bit after my parents and I settled in to where we live now. And Frog was just, memeing it up. being the silly frog that he is persistent on being in chat. I don't know. We kind of just we were just memeing away, I guess. And then I think I asked, do you stream at all? Do you stream Breath of the Wild too? Because that's who that was what the streamer, I guess you could say, was playing when I rated them, because I was playing the same thing. So that's how that started. And then I was like, oh shit, dude, you draw? You do the arts? That's pretty cool. And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh. But yeah, so and then I started he started streaming a little bit after I followed him, and then I stuck around.
But yeah, I do appreciate you taking what's been almost 2 hours.
Oh yeah, I tend to talk a lot.
I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate that I didn't have to try to keep you going every 20 seconds.
No. When I'm engaging in an actual conversation, I can just keep blabbering on. Now, I never used to be like that, but within the past 5 years or so, that's kind of been a thing for me.
I don't think it's blathering. I think you have some genuinely interesting things to say.
See, and I don't think that, but
I wouldn't be interviewing if that was the case.
Well,
again, I think you should give yourself more credit, tying back to what was discussed earlier.
I think I'll try to.
Well, or again, at least be aware of it, that you're hypercritical.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm a big fan of your work, and also you as well as a person. You're very kind and genuine.
Yay! Yay!
Yeah.
No, well, I hope I was informative somewhat as well with the creative. My personal creative process.
Yeah. Like I said, the main thing that I'm just looking to see, what makes people tick, what inspires them to create, and what's the meaning behind what they make, if there is any, or
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I want to thank you for taking 2 hours just to talk about these sorts of things.
Oh yeah, no problem. But yeah, no, I'm happy to participate. If it helps in any way, shape, or form, by all means.
Thanks a lot. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we talk more, because I do genuinely like you. We're friends, right? Have I just been assuming?
Were we ever not?
Okay, I just want to like make sure that I was.
The suspense. The suspense.